I'm all set.
For centuries, Europe didn't live with evil as metaphor or symbol, but as structured intelligence. The Middle Ages feared the demon as an exact science, an infernal operating system, a bureaucracy of the soul. Welcome once again to Esoteric Guardian. Today, we're descending through the darkest corridors of the medieval mind, where every sin carried a pattern, every temptation bore a name, and every horror left its signature. What you're about to hear is systematic theology, practiced by the most educated minds of their time. Inquisitors who studied at universities, monks fluent in Greek and Hebrew, exorcists who documented their procedures with clinical precision. The medieval world operated on a premise modern rationalism rejects. Evil exists as an active, intelligent, organized force with hierarchy, strategy, and specific methodologies for corrupting human souls. Fighting, it required understanding it with military precision. You needed organizational charts, names, ranks, capabilities, weaknesses. Subscribe to Esoteric Guardian and leave a like, because what follows will change how you understand the occult foundations of the modern world. Let's begin. A monastery library, 1450 after midnight. A single candle illuminates a desk where a monk copies a manuscript. He's transcribing the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum, a comprehensive list of demons, their powers, and summoning procedures. His hand trembles. What he's copying could damn his soul. Yet he continues, because the abbot has ordered it. Somewhere in this monastery, a young novice speaks languages he's never learned, vomits objects that shouldn't exist in his stomach, demonstrates knowledge of private sins he has no earthly way of knowing. They need this information desperately. They need to identify which demon possesses him. Each entity requires different procedures, different prayers, different rituals. You can't exercise Asmodeus using prayers meant for Belial. Different causes demand different interventions. Getting it wrong means the possessed dies, or worse, the demon spreads to others like spiritual contagion, infecting everyone who comes in contact with the original victim. Medieval demonology was systematic theological discipline. Inquisitors, monks, exorcists, alchemists, and kings used it. The objective was naming evil, classifying it, confronting it with symbolic, liturgical, and ritual tools. Thomas Aquinas, the greatest theological mind of the 13th century, wrote, "Knowledge of the demon is necessary to resist it. Because if evil has no name, it cannot be expelled. But if you name it, you bring it closer to you. You establish a relationship. And that relationship, even in antagonism, creates dangerous connection that can become a doorway for corruption." Here's the terrible paradox that every medieval demonologist understood. Fighting demons requires studying them. Studying them requires communing with them. You must understand how they think, what they desire, how they operate, what makes them vulnerable. And that understanding corrupts. The medieval demonologist walked a razor's edge between defender of the faith and practitioner of forbidden knowledge. Many crossed that line. The historical record confirms the pattern was disturbingly common. Think about what this means practically. You're a priest tasked with protecting your flock from demonic influence. You need to know if someone is genuinely possessed or merely suffering from natural illness. You need to distinguish between epilepsy and demonic manifestation, between madness and spiritual assault. So you read the texts, you study the signs, you learn the names and characteristics of demons. And every time you read those names, every time you visualize those sigils, every time you contemplate demonic methodology, you're establishing mental and spiritual connections to the very entities you're supposed to resist. Medieval demonology drew from multiple sources, creating a synthesis more comprehensive than any single tradition. Biblical texts formed the foundation, particularly Old Testament accounts of evil spirits and New Testament descriptions of Christ expelling demons. The story of Legion in the Gospel of Mark, where a man possessed by multiple demons lives among tombs, breaking chains with supernatural strength, cutting himself with stones, became the template for understanding severe possession. The account establishes several crucial principles. Demons can be multiple in a single host, they possess superhuman strength, they cause self-destructive behavior, they recognize Christ's authority, and they can be transferred into animals, which then destroy themselves. The account in 1 Samuel, where Saul is tormented by an evil spirit sent by God, established the theological precedent that demons operate under divine permission, that they cannot act without some level of heavenly authorization. This is crucial because it means demons aren't independent agents acting purely from their own will. They're instruments of a larger cosmic drama, tools that God permits to exist for purposes we may not fully understand. Some medieval theologians argued that demons exist to test the faithful, to separate genuine believers from false ones, to refine souls through spiritual combat. Patristic writings by church fathers like Augustine and Origen, who developed theories about demons and fallen angels, provided the theological framework Augustine's City of God, written in the early 5th century, established that demons were fallen angels who rebelled with Lucifer, that they retained their angelic intelligence but corrupted it toward evil purposes. This was important because it meant demons were smart. They weren't mindless forces of destruction. They were former celestial beings who had studied under God himself, who understood the mechanics of creation, who possessed knowledge and capabilities far beyond human comprehension. Augustine argued that demons envy humanity because humans have what demons lost: the possibility of redemption. Angels who fell are eternally damned. There's no second chance, no path back to God. But humans, though created lower than angels, can be saved, can be elevated even above angels through grace. This envy drives demonic hatred of humanity. Demons want to drag humans down to share their damnation, to prove that God was wrong to favor humanity, to corrupt the divine plan. Origen proposed a more controversial theory, eventually deemed heretical, that even demons might eventually be redeemed and returned to God. This apokatastasis, universal restoration, suggested that hell wasn't eternal, that all beings would eventually be reconciled to the divine. The Church rejected this because it undermined the consequences of sin, made damnation temporary rather than eternal, and therefore weakened the motivation to avoid evil. The doctrine was condemned, but the idea persisted in occult circles, in esoteric Christianity, in mystical traditions that saw hell as purgatorial rather than punitive. Classical philosophy, particularly Neoplatonism, with its concept of intermediary spiritual beings between the divine and material realms, provided structural models. Plato's concept of demons as neutral spirits who could be either beneficial or malevolent was absorbed into Christian demonology. Though stripped of its neutrality, medieval scholars read Plato through Christian lenses, interpreting his demons as demons in the Christian sense, malevolent entities masquerading as neutral or beneficial spirits to deceive humanity. And most disturbingly, practical experience. Accumulated knowledge from exorcists who confronted these entities and documented what worked, what failed, what killed the exorcist. There are accounts in monastic archives, most never translated from medieval Latin, of exorcisms gone catastrophically wrong. A priest in Bavaria in 1347, attempting to expel a demon from a young woman, reportedly collapsed mid-ritual, his face contorted in terror, and died 3 days later without speaking another word. Witnesses said his eyes remained open after death, staring at something no one else could see. The possessed woman recovered spontaneously after his death, leading to speculation that the demon had transferred from her to him, killing him in the process. Another account from France in 1402 describes an exorcist who successfully expelled a demon, but then began experiencing the same symptoms the possessed person had shown. Speaking in unknown languages, demonstrating knowledge he shouldn't possess, exhibiting superhuman strength. His brother monks imprisoned him for his own safety and performed exorcisms on him for weeks until he finally died, claiming with his last breath that the demon had cursed him for his interference, had marked him, and would claim his soul. These weren't cautionary tales invented to discourage the practice. These were documented cases that taught demonologists crucial lessons. You must complete the banishment ritual, you must seal all spiritual doors you open, you must never attempt exorcism while in a state of sin or spiritual weakness, because the demon will exploit any vulnerability. The church faced a profound dilemma. Studying demons was dangerous, potentially heretical, possibly an act of trafficking with evil. But ignorance left priests defenseless against genuine possession, unable to protect their flocks. The solution became a controlled knowledge system, a tiered access approach where information was compartmentalized based on need and spiritual readiness. Certain texts existed only for trained clergy, locked in monastery libraries, copied under supervision, never allowed to leave the premises. A village priest knew basic exorcism prayers, simple formulas he could recite in emergencies. A bishop knew elaborate rituals, multi-hour ceremonies involving multiple clergy. But full demonological libraries, complete grimoires with summoning procedures and demonic hierarchies, those were restricted to specialists who had demonstrated exceptional piety, who had survived decades of service without spiritual corruption. This created an underground economy of forbidden knowledge that the church couldn't fully control. Texts copied in secret, smuggled between monasteries, traded for favors or coin. Some monks spent entire lives studying demons, ostensibly to fight them, but the line between study and practice blurred. In 1323, a priest named William of Norwich was arrested and tried for heresy after a grimoire was found hidden in his cell. The text contained detailed summoning rituals, sigils of demons drawn with remarkable precision, and alarmingly, what appeared to be his own notes, documenting successful summonings. He had summoned the same demon, Andromalius, repeatedly over months, asking it questions about hidden treasure, about the sins of his parishioners, about future events. The demon had been truthful, had answered accurately, and had, according to William's notes, been courteous and agreeable in manner. He was burned as a heretic. His grimoire burned with him, though copies had already been made. The knowledge accumulated over generations. By the late Middle Ages, demonology had become as rigorous as any other branch of theology. The demon was Paimon, king of hell, commander of 200 legions, teacher of all arts and sciences, who appears riding a dromedary preceded by musicians, whose voice booms loud unless compelled otherwise, who must be summoned on specific days at specific hours using specific incantations, or the ritual fails catastrophically. That level of detail serves a crucial purpose. It transforms the abstract into the concrete. It makes the invisible visible. The medieval mind understood something modern rationalism forgot. You can't fight what you can't define. And so they defined it in exhaustive, obsessive, terrifying detail. The foundation of medieval demonology rested on specific texts that circulated through Europe's monasteries, universities, and royal courts. These were systematic attempts to catalogue and understand the demonic realm with the same rigor medieval scholars applied to astronomy, medicine, or law. The Pseudomonarchia Daemonum was compiled by Johann Weyer and published in 1577, technically just after the medieval period proper, but drawing entirely on medieval sources. Weyer was a Dutch physician and occultist, a student of Cornelius Agrippa, one of the most famous magicians of the Renaissance. Weyer claimed to be exposing demonic deception by cataloguing it comprehensively. The text lists 69 demons with their names, ranks in hell's hierarchy, powers, specific methods by which they could be summoned, and crucially, specific methods by which they could be resisted. Here's what's fascinating about Weyer's motivation. He presented this as satire, as scholarly mockery of demonic belief. He was attempting to demonstrate the absurdity of grimoires by creating an even more comprehensive, even more detailed catalogue, thinking that the sheer specificity would reveal how ridiculous the whole enterprise was. But the structure was so detailed, so apparently useful, that practicing magicians immediately recognized it as the most comprehensive demonic catalogue available. They absorbed it into actual grimoires, used it as reference material. The irony became truth because the lie proved too useful. The specificity is disturbing. Baal, listed as the first and most powerful demon, appears as a man, a cat, a toad, or all three simultaneously. This polymorphism suggests shape-shifting ability, the capacity to adapt form to circumstance. He commands 66 legions. The number is significant. 6 is the imperfect 7 in biblical numerology, humanity's number falling short of divine completion. 66 doubles this imperfection, emphasizes it. He grants invisibility and teaches cunning. The power set is coherent. Invisibility is physical concealment. Cunning is mental concealment. Baal is fundamentally the demon of hiding, of operating unseen, of deceiving through concealment rather than overt lies. Person appears as a man with a lion's face, carrying a viper, riding a bear. The symbolism is layered. The lion represents pride and predatory power. The viper represents deception and deadly poison. The bear represents raw strength and ferocity. He knows hidden things, finds treasure, reveals past and future 62 legions serve him. Person is the demon of forbidden knowledge, of learning secrets that should remain hidden, of obtaining wealth through occult means. Epos appears as an angel with a lion's head, a goose's foot, and a hare's tail. This form is deliberately grotesque, combining angelic and bestial elements in ways that violate natural categories. He knows past and future, makes men witty and bold. 36 legions. Epos is the demon of false confidence, of encouraging people to take risks they shouldn't take based on knowledge that seems reliable but isn't. The Ars Goetia, first section of the Lesser Key of Solomon, describes 72 demons in even greater detail. This text was probably compiled in the 17th century, but draws on much earlier medieval sources. The number 72 is deeply significant in occult numerology. It corresponds to the 72 names of God in Kabbalistic tradition, suggesting hell's hierarchy is a precise inversion of heaven's structure. For every name of God, there is a demon, a dark mirror. Each demon receives a full entry: name, rank, appearance, powers, the specific seal or sigil representing them, and precise ritual procedures for summoning and binding them. Consider demon number 9, Paimon, one of hell's kings. He appears as a man with feminine face, wearing a crown, riding a dromedary camel. Before him marched trumpeters and musicians. This processional entry suggests royalty, power, ceremony. His voice booms loud unless the magician compels otherwise. This detail is practical. It tells the summoner to include in the conjuration a command that paimons speak at reasonable volume. He teaches all arts, sciences, and secrets. This is comprehensive knowledge. He reveals what Earth is, what holds it up, what the abyss contains. These are cosmological questions, fundamental inquiries about reality. Paimon claims to know these ultimate secrets. He grants dignities and lordships, binds men to the magician's will. This is political power, social control, domination over others. 200 legions serve him, some from the order of angels, some from potentates. This detail is theologically significant. It confirms demons are fallen angels who retained their original nature but corrupted the text, provides his specific sigil, a geometric symbol functioning as his signature. Drawing the sigil correctly is essential. If you get the angles wrong, you might summon something else, something very angry. The Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, written by Heinrich Kramer in 1486, takes a different approach. This is an inquisitor's manual for identifying and prosecuting witchcraft. It contains extensive demonological theory. Kramer's thesis stated that demons operate primarily through human intermediaries, especially women. According to Kramer, women possess weaker intellect, more carnal nature, more impressionable minds, more susceptibility to lust, and therefore to demonic seduction. The Malleus describes how demons make pacts with witches through elaborate seduction procedures. The demon appears to the woman, often in attractive male form, and offers her powers: the ability to fly, to become invisible, to harm enemies, to cure diseases, to make men fall in love with her. In exchange, she must renounce Christ, desecrate the Eucharist, attend the Sabbath, where witches gather to worship demons, and allow the demon to copulate with her. The demonic copulation described in the Malleus is bizarrely specific. The demon, operating as an incubus, takes physical form to have sex with the witch. But demons are spiritual beings without physical bodies. So how is this possible? Kramer explains that demons can temporarily animate corpses, or fashion bodies from condensed air, or collect human semen from sinful men and use it to impregnate women. This might sound like pure fantasy, but it had horrifying real-world consequences. Women accused of witchcraft were interrogated under torture about their sexual experiences with demons. They were forced to describe the demon's appearance, the acts performed, how many times, when and where. These confessions, extracted through unbearable pain, were recorded as evidence. The women were convicted and burned alive. The Malleus provides procedures for identifying witches through interrogation, torture, and trial by ordeal. It explains why witches can cause impotence in men, why they make crops fail, why they kill babies. Every misfortune could be attributed to witchcraft, and the Malleus provided the theological framework justifying this attribution. This text caused tens of thousands of deaths, possibly hundreds of thousands. It's a manual for state-sanctioned murder dressed in theological language. The Liber Juratus Honorii, the Sworn Book of Honorius, is one of the earliest medieval grimoires, possibly dating to the 13th century. This text claims to be collected magical knowledge from 89 magicians who met in council after the church began persecuting magical practitioners. It contains procedures for summoning angels and demons, for compelling them to appear and obey, for obtaining knowledge of past and future, for becoming invisible, for causing love or hatred. What makes this text particularly disturbing is its claim to Christian orthodoxy. The rituals invoke God, Jesus, the Virgin Mary, the saints. The magician presents himself as divine servant, using God's own names and powers to compel spiritual entities. This is theurgy, supposedly white magic, supposedly acceptable because it operates through divine authority. But the line between compelling a demon through divine authority and making a pact with it is razor thin. Once you've summoned Lucifer in Christ's name, once you've forced him to answer your questions, how long before the power dynamic shifts? How long before you start seeing the demon as a useful tool rather than a dangerous enemy? The Picatrix, Latin translation of an Arabic grimoire called Gayat al-Hakim, brings together astrology, alchemy, and demonic invocation in a synthesis of Islamic and European magical traditions. This text describes how to create talismans embodying planetary and demonic powers, how to perform rituals timed to astronomical events, how to invoke spiritual entities for various purposes. All these texts shared an obsession. Evil must be understood in its anatomy, hierarchy, and function. You cannot fight what you cannot name. You cannot banish what you do not understand. And so, medieval scholars dove into the abyss and returned with maps. In medieval thinking, hell had structure. This was organization, not chaos. Hell operated as a feudal kingdom, a mirror image of earthly kingdoms medieval people knew. There were kings, dukes, princes, marquises, counts, presidents, each with specific domains, specific powers, specific legion, counts under their command. Why this structure? Because medieval Europeans understood power through hierarchy. The church had hierarchy: pope, cardinals, bishops, priests, deacons, monks. Kingdoms had hierarchy: kings, dukes, counts, barons, knights, peasants. Even heaven had hierarchy: seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, angels. 9 choirs arranged in 3 orders, so naturally, hell must have hierarchy too. As above, so below, the Hermetic principle, but inverted, corrupted, turned to malevolent purpose. If heaven is ordered, hell is ordered. If angels serve in organized choirs, demons serve in organized legions. The demonic ranks described in grimoires mirror earthly and heavenly hierarchies. Kings command the greatest power and the most legions: Baal, Paimon, Belith, Person, Asmodee, Vine, Balaam, Zagan. These are the 8 kings of hell, according to the Ars Goetia. Each commands multiple legions, ranging from 66 to 200. The king rank is significant because kings in medieval political theory held their authority directly from God. Even earthly kings ruled by divine right demon kings pervert this principle. They claim authority in hell, equivalent to the authority earthly kings claim on earth. Then come the dukes. The title duke derives from Latin dux, meaning leader or commander. Dukes in medieval society were powerful nobles who governed large territories, commanded private armies. Demon dukes function similarly. Agares is listed as a duke commanding 31 legions, meaning 155,000 demons. He appears as an old man riding a crocodile, carrying a hawk. The old man suggests ancient knowledge. The crocodile represents primordial power, patient predation. The hawk represents predatory vision. Agares makes runaways return and makes those standing still run. He causes earthquakes. He teaches all languages, grants titles and positions. Valifar appears as a lion with a thief's head. He leads followers to robbery and murder, but treats summoners courteously. 10 legions. The lion represents courage and nobility, but the thief's head corrupts it. Valifar grants courage for criminal purposes. Grimoire appears as a beautiful woman with a duchess's crown. riding a camel. She tells of hidden treasure, procures love of women young and old, 26 legions. The princes include Vasago, Citri, Epos, Garp, Stolas. The marquises include Naberius, Ronove, Forneus, Marcosius. The presidents include Barbas, Bua, Botus, Morax. The earls and counts include Furfa, Halphus, Raum, Bifrons, Andromalius. Each rank has specific powers, specific domains of expertise. The structure is hierarchical, but also specialized. You summon kings for major operations, you summon lesser demons for minor tasks. The hierarchy is efficient, organized, rational. And this organizational efficiency suggests intelligence. These are strategic entities who understand division of labor, chain of command, delegation of authority. They operate as coordinated force with specific objectives and optimized resource allocation. Peter Binsfeld, a German bishop writing in 1589, created another classification system based on the 7 deadly sins. Each sin received a specific demon as its primary tempter and patron. This created practical classification for understanding how demons operate psychologically. Pride belongs to Lucifer. The original sin, the rebellion against God, the desire for elevation beyond station. Lucifer was the greatest of angels, the light bearer, the most beautiful and powerful, but he wanted more. He wanted equality with God. He wanted to be worshipped rather than to worship. And for that pride, he fell. Lucifer tempts through ambition, through seductive whispers that you deserve more, that you're superior to others, that rules exist for lesser beings. The temptation is subtle because it builds on truth. You probably do have talents others lack. You probably have been treated unfairly. You probably do deserve recognition. Lucifer takes these genuine observations and twists them. Pride feels like self-respect. Pride feels like recognizing your true worth. Pride feels like refusing to be diminished. And that's why it works. Lucifer makes you feel gloriously, righteously superior. And by the time you realize you've become a monster of self-regard, isolated, unable to connect, because connection requires equality, it's too late. Envy belongs to Leviathan. In medieval cosmology, Leviathan was the great sea serpent, the dragon of the deep, the monster God created to demonstrate his power over chaos. Leviathan represents the twisted, coiling nature of envy. Leviathan operates through comparison, through the poison of seeing others' success and feeling diminished. He whispers that life is unfair, that you've been cheated, that what others possess should be yours. The temptation begins with observation. Someone has a nicer house, better job, more attractive spouse. These are just facts. But Leviathan adds interpretation. This is unjust. You deserve what they have. Envy feels like justice. Envy feels like recognizing theft. Envy feels like righteous anger at cosmic unfairness. And that's why it works. Leviathan makes you feel like a victim of injustice. And by the time you realize you've become bitter, consumed by hatred of others' success, unable to feel joy even in your own achievements, it's too late. Wrath belongs to Satan. Satan here is distinct from Lucifer. Lucifer is the prideful rebel. Satan is the adversary, the accuser, the prosecutor, the one whose role is to test humanity, to identify weakness, to stoke fury and violence. Satan operates through righteous indignation, through justified anger that metastasizes into destructive rage. Someone wrongs you. This is a fact. You have a right to be angry. This is also true. Satan agrees completely. Yes, you were wronged. Yes, you have a right to anger. Yes, they deserve punishment. And then he adds, you should punish them yourself. Wrath feels like moral clarity. Wrath feels like appropriate response to injustice, Wrath feels like strength and courage, and that's why it works. Satan makes you feel righteously, appropriately, justifiably angry. And by the time you realize you've become violent, destructive, that you've hurt innocent people in your quest for vengeance, it's too late. Avarice belongs to mammon. In the New Testament, Jesus says you cannot serve both God and mammon, personifying wealth as a rival deity. Medieval demonology developed mammon into a full demonic entity, the demon of greed, of material accumulation, of believing security comes from possessions. Mammon's seduction is the most subtle because it's the most socially acceptable. Pride, envy, wrath, these are clearly problematic. But wanting financial security, that's responsible. Mammon agrees. Yes, financial security is important. Yes, you should provide for your family. And then he whispers, you need more. What you have isn't enough. And here's his genius. He never says how much is enough. You make your first million and feel briefly satisfied, then fear returns. What if you lose it? You need more as insurance, and you can't stop accumulating because stopping means accepting vulnerability. Avarice feels like prudence. Avarice feels like responsibility. Avarice feels like building security. And that's why it works. Mammon makes you feel practical, responsible, wise, and by the time you realize you've sacrificed everything for wealth, that you've destroyed relationships for money, that you've wasted your life accumulating things that never made you happy, it's too late. Lust belongs to Asmodeus. In Jewish demonology, Asmodeus was king of demons. Medieval Christian demonology adopted Asmodeus as the demon of lust, of perverted desire, of sexuality, divorced from love and connection, reduced to appetite and domination. Asmodeus operates through obsession, through transforming another person into an object, through corrupting intimacy into exploitation. Sexual desire begins as natural human impulse. Asmodeus redirects it. Instead of seeing the other person as full human being worthy of love, you see them as body, as source of pleasure, as something to be obtained and consumed. Lust feels like passion. Lust feels like honoring your authentic desires. Lust feels like refusing puritanical repression. And that's why it works. Asmodeus makes you feel liberated, honest, courageous. And by the time you realize you've become unable to form real intimacy, that you've reduced sex to mechanics, that you're addicted to something that no longer satisfies, it's too late. Gluttony belongs to Beelzebub. In the Old Testament, Beelzebub was Baal-zebub, lord of the flies, a Philistine deity. Medieval Christianity transformed him into a demon, specifically the demon of gluttony, of excess, of consumption beyond need. Beelzebub tempts through the mouth, through endless appetite that can never be satisfied, through transforming eating from nourishment to addiction. Food begins as fuel, as pleasure, as social bonding. Beelzebub twists it. Eating becomes comfort, becomes reward, becomes coping mechanism. Bad day, eat. Lonely, eat. Bored, eat. Gluttony feels like comfort. Gluttony feels like rewarding yourself for suffering. Gluttony feels like the one pleasure you're entitled to. And that's why it works. Beelzebub makes you feel like you deserve pleasure, like you're taking care of yourself. And by the time you realize you've destroyed your health, that you're trapped in a cycle where the solution has become the problem, it's too late. Sloth belongs to Belphegor. This demon is less well known than the others, but his function is crucial. Belphegor is the demon of despair, of paralysis, of believing nothing matters, and therefore, why try? Belphegor doesn't make you physically lazy. He makes you spiritually hopeless. He convinces you that effort is futile, that the system is rigged, that you might as well surrender. Why work hard? The rich will stay rich, and you'll stay poor. Why maintain relationships? Everyone betrays you eventually. Why pursue virtue? Hypocrites prosper while good people suffer. Sloth feels like wisdom. Sloth feels like seeing through society's lies. Sloth feels like accepting harsh reality instead of indulging comforting illusions. And that's why it works. Belphegor makes you feel enlightened, realistic, courageous in facing life's meaninglessness. And by the time you realize you've given up on everything, that you're dead inside, it's too late. Binsfeld's system is psychologically sophisticated. Each demon attacks the soul through its specific weakness. Sin is spiritual influence, active corruption, external intelligence working to destroy you through your own vulnerabilities. And here's the brilliant evil. Each sin feels justified. The demons appear as your own thoughts, perfectly rationalized, completely reasonable. That's their effectiveness. Now we come to practical mechanics. How did medieval magicians actually attempt summoning demons? The grimoires provide extraordinarily detailed procedures. These are precise technical specifications, step-by-step instructions that read like instruction manuals. The basic structure, following the Ars Goetia and similar texts, involves several stages that must be performed in exact order. First comes preparation of the magician. This requires days or weeks of preparation. Proper summoning requires extensive preparation. The grimoires specify fasting periods, 3 days, 7 days, sometimes 40 days, depending on the demon's rank. During fasting, you consume only bread and water, sometimes only water, sometimes complete abstinence. Sexual abstinence is mandatory. Most grimoires require at least 3 days of celibacy, some require much longer. This includes complete abstinence from sexual thoughts, lustful gazes. The magician must achieve complete purity of body and intention. Ritual bathing occurs multiple times throughout the preparation period. Some grimoires specify bathing in running water, preferably a stream or river. Others require bathing in water mixed with salt, hyssop, and other purifying herbs. The baths are accompanied by prayers asking for purification, for strength, for divine protection. The magician must confess sins to a priest, receive absolution, take communion. This establishes right relationship with God before attempting to command demons. You're about to assert divine authority over entities that hate God. You need to be in a state of grace, free from mortal sin, spiritually pure. Some grimoires specify wearing white robes made from virgin linen, meaning fabric never worn or used before. The robes are consecrated through elaborate rituals involving prayer, incense, sprinkling with holy water. Other grimoires require black robes, symbolizing the magician's willingness to descend into darkness. Why all this preparation? Because you're about to stand before a spiritual entity that wants to destroy you. You're calling something into manifestation that hates you fundamentally, that will seize any opportunity to cause harm. The ritual purity is protective. It establishes your connection to divine authority. You're summoning as agent of God, clothed in spiritual armor, protected by prayers and holy names. Second comes construction of the circle of protection. This is absolutely critical. The circle is typically 9 feet in diameter. Why 9 feet? Because 9 is a sacred number, 3 times 3, the Trinity multiplied by itself. Some grimoires specify different sizes for different demons. The circle is inscribed on the ground with chalk, charcoal, or sometimes carved into wood or stone for permanent use. The circle contains names of God in Hebrew: Adonai, Elohim, El, Shaddai, Ehayeh, YHVH. These names are written around the circle's circumference in Hebrew letters, creating a barrier of divine power. The circle also contains names of angels, particularly the 4 archangels who protect the 4 quarters: Michael to the south, Gabriel to the west, Raphael to the east, Uriel to the north. Verses from Scripture are often inscribed within the circle, particularly passages describing God's power over evil. Around the circle's perimeter are additional names and symbols, creating multiple protection layers: pentacles, 5-pointed stars; hexagrams, 6-pointed stars formed from overlapping triangles; sigils of protective angels; crosses at the 4 quarters. Some grimoires require multiple circles, concentric rings of protection. The innermost circle is where the magician stands. The outer circles provide additional barriers. The circle must be drawn at specific times determined by astrology. Each planet governs specific hours of each day. If you're summoning a demon associated with Mars, you must summon during Mars's hour on Mars's day, which is Tuesday. The circle serves several functions. It's a barrier that demonic entities cannot cross. In medieval cosmology, circles are perfect shapes, the most powerful containing forms. A properly constructed circle creates a sealed space, a bubble of sacred reality. The demon cannot touch you while you remain inside. This is absolute. Breaking the circle is death. The circle is also a battery concentrating spiritual power. The names of God inscribed around it call divine presence. The angel names invoke angelic protection. All this power flows into the circle's interior, making it a fortress, a temple, a pocket of heaven, temporarily manifested on earth. Third comes the triangle of evocation. This is placed outside the circle, typically to the east, about 3 feet from the circle's edge. Why the east? Because east is the direction of dawn, of light emerging from darkness. The triangle is usually 2 feet per side, forming an equilateral triangle. It's inscribed on the ground or drawn on parchment. The triangle contains the seal of the demon being summoned, drawn carefully according to specifications. It also contains additional binding symbols. Some texts specify that the triangle must contain the names Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael at its 3 points, the archangels who will restrain the demon. Why a triangle? Sacred geometry. The triangle represents stability, foundation, the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's the simplest closed geometric form, the most stable structure. It's a binding shape, a prison. The demon appears within the triangle and cannot leave it until the magician gives permission. The triangle is simultaneously doorway and cage. Fourth comes creation of the demon's seal. Each demon has a unique sigil, a geometric symbol functioning as its name, its signature, its essence in symbolic form. These sigils are remarkably complex, combining circles, lines, angles, symbols, letters. The seal must be created according to specific procedures. You need virgin parchment, meaning paper or animal skin never written on before. Some texts specify parchment made from animal skin sacrificed at specific time. The ink matters. Some rituals require ink made from lampblack, gum arabic, rose water, wine. Others specify more disturbing materials. One grimoire specifies black rooster blood collected on Tuesday during Mars's hour, mixed with powdered mercury and myrrh. The seal is inscribed with precise attention to detail. Every line must be exactly right. Every symbol must be perfectly formed. If you make a mistake, you must begin again with new parchment. The seal is placed in the triangle before summoning begins. The seal acts as anchor, as target, as telephone number, allowing the magician to reach that specific entity. Fifth comes the invocation. the actual calling. The magician stands in the circle, faces the triangle, and recites the conjuration, the formula compelling the demon to appear. These conjurations are long, often exceeding 1,000 words. They're elaborate, combining multiple languages: Latin for formal ritual structure, Hebrew for divine names, Greek for philosophical terms, sometimes invented angelic languages. They begin by invoking God through multiple names: Adonai, Tetragrammaton, El, Elohim, Sabaoth, Ehaya, Shaddai, Alpha, and Omega. This establishes that you're speaking with divine authority. They invoke angels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. They describe God's power through biblical imagery: who parted the Red Sea, who raised the dead, who conquered hell. Then comes the command to the demon, using its true name. I conjure thee, Paimon, great king of hell, commander of 200 legions, by the power of the Most High, by the authority invested in me as servant of God, by the names that cannot be spoken except in power, to appear before me in this triangle, in fair and comely shape, without deformity or terror, without causing harm to anyone, to answer truly all questions I shall ask. The formula is coercive. You're commanding. You're using God's authority to force compliance. And it's dangerous because you're asserting authority you may genuinely lack if your spiritual purity is insufficient, if your preparation is flawed. If you make a mistake, the demon is unbound. You've called it, but haven't bound it. And now you're standing in a circle with a hostile intelligence you just tried and failed to dominate. The demon appears, or something appears. Medieval grimoires are full of warnings about false appearances. The entity may try frightening you into breaking the circle by appearing as a dragon breathing fire, as a giant snake, as a wall of flames. This is psychological warfare. The demon wants you to panic, to flee, to break the circle. You must remain calm, must hold your ground, must repeat the conjuration more forcefully. The entity may try tricking you by appearing as an angel of light, beautiful and radiant, claiming to be sent by God. This is arguably more dangerous because it seems benevolent. If you believe it's an angel, you might break the circle to kneel before it. You must test it, must demand it swear by God's name that it is what it claims to be. Demons cannot speak God's name without revealing their true nature. The entity may appear as someone you know, someone you love, your mother, your child, your beloved. This is manipulation at its most intimate. You must remember that the being in the triangle is not the person it resembles, that demons can read your mind and know who would most affect you. Once the demon appears in acceptable form, it must be questioned. The grimoires provide lists of questions. What is your true name? What is your rank? How many legions do you command? What powers do you possess? The demon is compelled to answer truthfully, though they're famous for twisting words, for telling technical truths that mislead. Then comes negotiation, the moment of maximum danger. What does the magician want? Knowledge, wealth, power, love, revenge? Everything you want, the demon can provide. And there's always a price, always. The grimoires warn repeatedly, never make a pact, never promise your soul, never sign anything in blood, never agree to worship the demon, never renounce Christ, demand service in God's name by divine authority. But how many magicians follow that advice? How many stand in the circle, having successfully summoned a demon, hearing it offer wealth or power or secret knowledge, and think, just this once, just a small bargain? The grimoires exist because people made those bargains. The warnings exist because warnings are needed. Finally comes dismissal. This is as important as summoning. You cannot leave a demon loose in the world. The entity must be properly banished, sent back to wherever it came from, all contracts terminated, all connections severed. The dismissal formula typically goes, "Because thou hast diligently answered my demands, I do here license thee to depart unto thy proper place, without causing injury or danger to any person or creature. I conjure thee to withdraw peaceably and quietly, and may the peace of God continue between me and thee. Amen." Only after the demon has departed can the magician safely leave the circle. Some texts specify destroying the circle after use, erasing symbols, burning parchments to prevent accidental reopening of connection. The grimoires provide critical warnings. Never break the circle. Never let the demon speak outside the triangle. Never repeat its name outside the ritual context. And here's what should terrify you. These procedures are still used. Modern occult organizations use modified versions of these same procedures. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the OTO under Aleister Crowley, various Thelemic groups, they use these rituals. Why? Because according to practitioners, they work. Summoning demons was dangerous but voluntary. Possession was the nightmare scenario, when a demon invaded without invitation, took control of human body without permission, and had to be forcibly expelled. Medieval Europeans took possession extremely seriously because they believed it was real, frequent, and deadly. Possession could happen to anyone, saints and sinners, old and young, rich and poor, and once possessed, you might be trapped for years, might die during exorcism, might be mistaken for insane. The signs of possession were well documented, refined through centuries of observation. Physical symptoms included sudden strength beyond normal human capacity, often called preternatural strength, a small child lifting multiple grown men, an elderly woman breaking iron chains, a frail monk throwing armed guards across a room. This strength appears without warning, operates without normal limitations. Unusual contortions characterized severe possession. The body bent backward in ways that should break the spine, forming a bridge supported only by head and heels. Limbs twisted at impossible angles. Joints hyperextended. The neck rotated 180 degrees. These contortions occurred spontaneously, often during exorcism attempts. Strange vomiting accompanied many possessions. The possessed would expel objects that couldn't possibly be in their stomach. Dozens of nails, all the same size broken glass in quantities that should have shredded internal organs. Live animals, frogs, lizards, snakes, spiders. Objects too large to have been swallowed. Stones the size of eggs, pieces of metal, wooden crosses. Knowledge the person shouldn't possess provided the most disturbing evidence. The possessed spoke languages they'd never learned, conversing fluently in Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, ancient languages unknown to modern scholarship. They revealed secret sins of people they'd never met, intimate details of sexual transgressions, hidden murders, private blasphemies. They knew events happening at a distance, what someone was doing in another city, what was said in private conversations. This was taken as definitive proof of demonic presence because only a spiritual entity with supernatural perception could access such information. The knowledge demonstrations followed patterns. The demon would address someone in the room by name never mentioned, reveal their secret sin in front of others, mock them for hypocrisy. Aversion to sacred objects was universal among genuine possessions. When exposed to holy water, blessed salt, consecrated hosts or relics, the possessed reacted violently and immediately, screaming, writhing, trying desperately to flee. The skin might blister where holy water touched. Contact with consecrated host caused the most extreme reactions: vomiting, unconsciousness, temporary paralysis. Interestingly, this failed if the person didn't know what they were being exposed to. A famous test involved offering 2 cups of water, one blessed and one plain, without indicating which was which. If the possessed reacted to both or neither, possession was doubted. If they reacted specifically and consistently to the blessed water, possession was confirmed. Changed voice and personality provided the most dramatic evidence. The possessed spoke in voices completely different from their own. Deep, masculine voices from women and children, feminine voices from men, multiple distinct voices suggesting multiple demons. The voices claimed to be specific demons, provided names and ranks. Here's a documented case that illustrates these phenomena. In 1566 in Laon, France, a young woman named Nicole Aubry, about 16 years old, began suffering convulsions and speaking in a male voice that identified itself as Beelzebub. The demon claimed to have entered her body because she attended a theatrical performance, which the demon called an act of vanity, opening her to possession. The Bishop of Laon, Charles de Créqui-Blanchefort, was a sophisticated man, educated, skeptical of fraud. He interrogated Nicole extensively before concluding the possession was genuine. The demon spoke Latin and Greek fluently, though Nicole was illiterate. The demon revealed private sins of observers. The demon demonstrated preternatural strength, breaking restraints, throwing grown men. The bishop ordered a series of public exorcisms that attracted thousands of spectators. The exorcisms took weeks, performed almost daily in the cathedral before huge crowds. The demon reportedly threw Nicole across the room with such force that witnesses thought her neck would break. Her body contorted into impossible positions. She vomited continuously, pins, needles, pieces of broken pottery, live worms. The demon mocked the exorcists, predicted their deaths, threatened everyone present. But it also displayed knowledge that shouldn't exist. It described events from Nicole's childhood that only she and her now-dead mother knew. It revealed the priest performing exorcism had committed sins of simony, details later confirmed. Finally, after weeks of continuous exorcism, the demon was cast out during a dramatic ceremony. Nicole's body convulsed violently, every muscle contracting simultaneously. Foam came from her mouth, mixed with blood. She screamed in a voice witnesses said sounded like a bull being slaughtered. Then, sudden silence. She collapsed unconscious. When she woke hours later, she remembered nothing, was weak and ill, but herself again. The exorcism procedures were formalized by the Catholic Church. The Roman ritual, officially codified in 1614, but based on much earlier practices, provides the official procedures still used today. First, the exorcist must verify actual possession versus mental illness, fraud, or natural disease. The Church took this surprisingly seriously. Many suspected possessions were dismissed as medical conditions requiring doctors rather than priests. Once possession was confirmed through rigorous testing, exorcism could begin. The possessed person was often restrained to prevent them from harming themselves or others during violent reactions. The exorcist wore sacred vestments establishing his authority. Purple stole, surplice. He carried holy water in a blessed vessel, blessed salt, a crucifix prominently displayed, and often a relic of a saint. The ritual began with prayers, establishing spiritual protection and calling for divine assistance. The litany of saints was often recited, calling on every saint by name. Scripture reading followed, particularly gospel passages where Jesus cast out demons. Then came direct confrontation, the exorcist addressing the demon. "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you, unclean spirit, whoever you are, along with all your associates possessing this servant of God, to tell me your name, your rank, and the day and hour of your departure." The demon would often resist, remaining silent or lying. The exorcist continued the assault, reciting prayers of command, sprinkling holy water, making the sign of the cross repeatedly, pressing the crucifix against the forehead. The key prayer was the Exorcizo Te. "I cast you out, unclean spirit, along with every satanic power of the enemy, every spectre from hell, and all your fell companions. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, be gone and stay far from this creature of God. For it is He who commands you, He who flung you headlong from the heights of heaven into the depths of hell." The process could take hours, days, weeks, sometimes months. Multiple sessions, the demon claiming to leave, then returning. Some possessions involved multiple demons. The famous Loudun possessions of 1634 involved an entire convent of nuns, 17 women claiming possession by multiple demons each. A medieval text states, "Possessing the body was only the first phase. The objective was breaking the will, then extinguishing the soul." Here's what's disturbing. It still happens. The Catholic Church still performs exorcisms, maintains trained exorcists in every diocese, documents cases. The procedures are essentially unchanged from medieval practice. In 1999, the Church updated the Roman ritual for the first time since 1614, but changes were minor. There are documented cases of exorcists dying during or shortly after exorcisms. The demon, departing, screams that it will have revenge. Within weeks, the exorcist shows signs of possession himself. The risks are real. Medieval accounts describe using additional methods, sacrificing goats or birds, to transfer the evil from the possessed person to the animal, which would then be killed or driven away, hiding holy water in food or drink to test genuine aversion, extended fasting of the possessed to weaken the demon's hold. One medieval testimony states, "A woman possessed by Marbus spoke in 3 languages and did not sleep for 11 days. When finally exorcised, she had no memory of the ordeal." Medieval demonology didn't just catalog demons and possession symptoms, it mapped hell itself, creating elaborate cosmographies with the same attention to detail medieval scholars applied to earthly geography. Hell had structure, levels, regions, each with specific characteristics and specific inhabitants. According to the grimoires, hell wasn't just eternal fire. It was a structure of realms, chambers, and dark towers where each entity had an exact place, 7 circles, 9 spheres, 4 pillars of darkness. This geography was inspired by the Dark Kabbalah, the Qlipoth, by Dante's Divine Comedy, and by apocalyptic visions. Dante's Inferno, completed in 1320, describes hell as a massive, funnel-shaped cavity beneath Jerusalem, divided into 9 concentric circles, each deeper than the last, each containing souls punished for specific sins, with torments precisely calibrated to their crimes. But Dante was drawing on older traditions, theological texts, visionary literature, apocalyptic writings that had been mapping hell for centuries. The basic structure in most medieval cosmologies placed hell beneath earth, a vast cavity created when Lucifer fell from heaven. His impact created the pit, the wound in creation that became the realm of the damned. Some texts placed hell at Earth's exact center, the furthest point from heaven, the bottom of cosmic order. Hell was divided into regions, though the number and organization varied by source. Some texts described 7 levels corresponding to the 7 deadly sins. Others had 9 levels mirroring the 9 choirs of angels, but inverted. Still others organized hell by temperature. Upper regions were fire and active torment. Lower regions were ice and cold. The very bottom was absolute zero, the complete absence of God's warmth. The demons inhabit these regions according to rank and function. The great demon kings might have palaces, courts, territories they govern. Lesser demons serve as tormentors, guards, administrators of punishment. The whole system operates as kingdom, with departments and procedures and organizational charts. Hell is a government. Some texts place hell at Earth's exact center. This makes sense geometrically and symbolically. Heaven is above, the highest realm. Earth is middle, hell is below, the lowest realm. Distance from God determines position. The geometry of hell was often described using sacred mathematics, numbers with theological significance. 7 levels for the sins, 9 levels for inverted angels. 72 demons in the Ars Goetia, corresponding to the 72 names of God in Kabbalistic tradition. 333 legions under specific demons. These numbers weren't arbitrary. They carried meaning, revealed structure, showed mathematical underpinning of spiritual reality. Medieval scholars believed reality was fundamentally mathematical, that God had created the universe using geometric principles. Hell's mathematics were corrupted versions of heaven's mathematics. Some texts describe hell having physical features: rivers of fire, lakes of pitch, mountains of ice, forests where trees are damned souls, cities where demons dwell in mockery of heavenly Jerusalem. The Apocalypse of Paul describes the narrator being taken on a tour of hell by angels, seeing various regions where different sinners are tormented appropriately, murderers thrown into rivers of fire, adulterers hung by their genitals over smoldering coals, gluttons forced to eat red-hot stones. This geographical precision served multiple purposes. It made hell comprehensible, gave it structure that human minds could grasp. Abstract threats of eternal punishment are difficult to conceptualize, but describing exactly where you'll go, exactly what region, exactly which demon will oversee your torment based on your specific sins, that's visceral, that's terrifying. The geography also reflected cosmic order. If heaven has structure, hell has structure. If the universe is ordered, hell participates in that order. Even chaos has structure in medieval thinking. Medieval maps of hell exist, literal cartographic representations attempting to show its structure visually. Some are simple diagrams, concentric circles with labels. Others are elaborate illustrations, detailed landscapes showing mountains of fire, frozen lakes, cities of the damned, demons tormenting souls. And it reinforced the taxonomic approach to demonology. If hell is organized, then its inhabitants are organized. If hell has structure, then understanding that structure gives you power. Know the geography, know which demons dwell where, know the hierarchy, and you can navigate the infernal realm, at least in theory. This is the magician's hope. That knowledge is protection. We've descended through medieval understanding of demons, their hierarchy, their methods, the rituals to summon them, the procedures to expel them, the geography of their realm. Now we need to understand why this matters today. Medieval demonology fundamentally shaped Western occultism. Every modern magical system, from the Golden Dawn to Thelema, to chaos magic, to various New Age practices, draws on these medieval sources, whether acknowledged or not. The grimoires are still in print, still studied, still used. The Ars Goetia is probably more widely available now than in the Middle Ages. You can buy it on Amazon for $20. You can download PDFs for free. High school kids discover these texts and attempt the rituals. The hierarchies of hell became templates for understanding spiritual reality. When modern occultists talk about working with demons, they're using organizational charts developed by medieval scholars, the sigils, the summoning procedures, the protective circles. All of this comes directly from medieval sources, sometimes with minor modifications, often unchanged. Modern occult organizations use these procedures. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn developed elaborate rituals based on medieval grimoires. The OTO under Aleister Crowley incorporated demonic evocation into their highest degree initiations. Various thelemic groups still practice these arts, claiming they're working with goetic spirits or qliphothic entities rather than demons, using different terminology but following the same essential procedures. The structure of evil as symbolic order was absorbed into art, politics, and religious narratives. Hell is no longer feared just as punishment, it's understood as inverted mirror of divine order. Everything above is structured like what's below, but reversed, with blood. The medieval approach to evil as organized intelligence rather than abstract force offers a different framework for understanding darkness. Modern psychology talks about the shadow, about repressed impulses, about unconscious drives. That's useful, but it's internal. It locates evil entirely within human psyche. The medieval view was that evil has external reality. There are forces wanting to destroy you that exist beyond your own neuroses. If you've ever felt genuine malevolent intent from somewhere you couldn't identify, if you've ever experienced what felt like coordinated bad luck, if you've ever felt like something was actively working against you beyond normal cause and effect, the medieval framework provides language for that experience. The practices described in these texts produce results. People who perform these rituals report experiences. Entities appear, or something appears. Knowledge is gained that seems to come from outside the practitioner's normal consciousness. Events occur that seem connected to the ritual. Is this actual demonic manifestation? Psychological phenomena? Unconscious knowledge surfacing through ritual theater? Something else? The medieval demonologist didn't care about that distinction. The system worked, or it failed. If performing the ritual produced the desired result, the mechanism mattered less than the effectiveness. And here's something disturbing. The medieval mindset is returning. Look at modern conspiracy theories. The belief in coordinated evil, in shadowy forces, manipulating events, in hidden powers, working to corrupt and destroy. This is demonological thinking in secular language. The structure is identical, an organized hierarchy of evil working through human agents to achieve malevolent goals. The belief that certain people are literally in league with demonic forces, engaging in rituals, corrupting the innocent, this comes straight from medieval demonology. The witch hunts didn't end. They just changed targets and terminology. The central question of demonology remains unanswered. Is evil a force or a choice? Are we corrupted by external entities, or do we corrupt ourselves? The medieval answer was, both demons tempt, but humans choose. The demon offers, but you must accept. This is more sophisticated than either pure predestination or pure free will. It acknowledges external influence while preserving agency. The demon can't force you. That's a consistent rule across all grimoires and theological texts. Demons can tempt, trick, seduce, manipulate, but they can't directly override free will. That's reserved for God alone. The demon must get you to choose evil, to invite it in, to open the door. Once you do, they have power. But the initial choice is always yours. This has profound implications. It means you're always responsible for your actions, even under demonic influence. It means resistance is always possible, but it also means you're never alone in your struggles. The impulse toward evil is something beyond just your own weakness. There are forces that amplify it, that work to push you toward destruction. Medieval demonology teaches one critical lesson: the darkness has structure. Evil is not random chaos. It's organized, intelligent, strategic, and if you're going to fight it, you need to understand it. But understanding comes at a price. The medieval demonologists paid that price so we could have their knowledge. That's the terrifying truth about medieval demonology. In the Middle Ages, demons weren't metaphors. They were entities with names, seals, hierarchies, functions, and contracts. The evil was so real, it needed to be administered. This wasn't about faith. This was about spiritual defense. And here's the most terrifying part: the rituals still work. We just call them something else now. The system they built still functions, still attracts practitioners, still produces effects. The grimoires remain. The knowledge persists. And every generation produces new magicians, new demonologists, new people who believe they can control what others couldn't. The medieval demonologists made their choice. They built their circles, they spoke the names, they summoned the darkness. Some survived. Some didn't. Some became what they were fighting. And their legacy lives on, waiting for anyone brave or foolish enough to pick up where they left off.